Hey up everyone, Magpie Gaming here. I hope you're all doing well. So we've had a podcast where Nikita was a guest on it. It was a community podcast. It had Den, Exe on, Iron Fist, Geekesh and Sigma on. And of course Nikita was in attendance himself. So we've got quite a few subjects to go through. They touched on early wipe gameplay, free roam, Lighthouse, arena mode, Steam audio, Scav rep, radiation poisoning, storyline quests, Streets of Tarkov, locking items in the stash, airdrops, DLSS and the final release. So I'm going to go through each of those points and just give you the info that I gleaned from the podcast itself. I will of course put a link down below to the VOD for the podcast so that you can go check out the full thing if you want, because obviously I've just skimmed to the top of everything that was said in it. But yeah, there was quite a bit to go through, so I'll try and get through it as quick as I can so that you're not sat around listening to a massively long video. But I will, if I remember, put timestamps down below so that you can jump to the category that you want to listen to. So the early wipe gameplay that was touched on and how Nikita felt about it. He said he felt it was progressing well. Obviously this early wipe gameplay is lasting a lot longer now, obviously with the restriction of flea market items and sort of holding back on the high level armor and ammunition, making it more scarce, more harder to get hold of. People are having to use the lower tier gear a lot longer. He said that was the aim for 12.12 and he said that, you know, he's happy with where it's going, but they eventually want to get to a point where the game doesn't need to wipe. At the moment, one of the reasons that it does wipe is because people get bored, they've done everything in the game and they've reached sort of that sort of end game sort of place, so this is another reason why it wipes. But it says they still do want to get to a point where there is a character that doesn't wipe, but obviously more work needs to be put in. But he's still looking at the possibility of having two PMCs, one that doesn't wipe and one that will wipe seasonally, roughly like every 6 months like we do at the moment. Then they touched on the free roam mode, which has been much talked about over the years, basically where all of the maps are stitched together and you're able to go from map to map. So it basically just gives you one massive map. It says this is still something that they're looking at, but technically it's very difficult at the moment for them to do, but it's definitely something that they want to add into the game at some point. But right now Nikita is looking at the possibility of being able to transfer from one map to another, so it isn't like one big map you would extract from one and spawn into another map. Sometimes you may know you're doing this and other times you may not know you're doing it. He's looking at mechanics where it will, especially with Streets of Tarkov, where you will go to what you believe is an extract, but then you will be put into another map that you then have to extract from. So it'd be interesting to see how they make that work in the end. But yeah, free roam is in development, but obviously technical difficulties are really holding that back right now. Lighthouse map, there was lots to talk about the Lighthouse map. Obviously this is still undergoing optimization. Nikita said that they had to pull back the amount of scavs that spawn on there not long after releasing the map, because that was one way that they could boost the overall performance of the map. He says they're still not happy with the performance, they want to get it to a more stable state, but he says that it's taking time and they're hoping that with the introduction of Unity 2020, which will be implemented at some point into their development sort of program, it will be made to run a lot better. He also spoke about the kind of expansion to the map. Now we know that a land bridge is going to be opened up and you're going to be able to enter the lighthouse. This is where the rumoured in-game trader will be. He will be guarded by sniper boss, but Nikita said that other bosses will be on the map as well, probably not all at the same time due to the limitations with performance. But he said that the in-game trader will be a dialogue driven encounter, so you'll have to go through certain sort of lines of dialogue to be able to purchase things from him, etc. So he said that there's still a lot of stuff to be done with this sort of expansion to Lighthouse. He said it's several weeks of technical work to be done on that. Now several weeks to me is 12 weeks. That's 3 months. So 3 months is taking us very close towards that middle of the year time, and that is predominantly when Escape from Tarkov does wipe. So it could be that the expansion doesn't come until the next wipe, but we'll have to wait and see. They say that they are working on it, but they also say that the vast majority of the team is working on Streets of Tarkov. So we'll have to wait and see when we get that one. Arena mode was spoken about. Nikita said it's still in development. It will be sold as a standalone game upon its release, but for those of us that have the EOD edition, we will get that for free. He didn't give any other details out about arena mode. They spoke about Steam audio and the clicking and popping issues that a lot of people have been suffering with it recently. He said the only way to stop that right now is to disable Steam audio. That is the only way to stop this. He said it's not an issue that's exclusive to Escape from Tarkov. He said this is an issue with the Steam audio module and they don't really have access to changing anything to it, so they are waiting for Steam to sort of update it. And if you remember earlier in the week there was an update that was put out. Now this update was put out after Steam updated Steam Audio saying that they had fixed that issue. This update then incurred a lot of people were getting errors and getting kicked out of the game, etc. So they rolled that back. So currently we're back to sort of square one with Steam Audio right now. But it says there is a team working on it and they're hoping to have something solved with that eventually at some point in the future. Spoke about Scav Rep. The streamers that were on there said, you know, is there going to be a way for you to sort of get back into positive rep if you are really hugely in negative rep? And Nikita basically said that if you suck and you kill too many scavs, that's on you. You know, actions have consequences and that's just how it is. Now we have just recently had the sort of Scav Karma event where you could gain +1 rep back. I would assume that we'll have some more sort of events like that, but if you are massively in negative rep, it doesn't look like there's any easy way out of it for you. You're just going to be stuck in it. Nikita's basically saying don't be a dick and kill all the scavs and you'll be okay. So yeah, actions have consequences like some of the streamers said on the podcast. Radiation poisoning was spoken about. Nikita said there are going to be areas where radiation poisoning will affect your PMC. He said it will have temporary and lasting effects. So this might be something that you've got to constantly treat with medication in the game, even if you aren't in a raid. So again, another one of these things where actions have consequences, but he does say that you'll be able to buy masks and suits, etc. to sort of mitigate the dangers with this, but at the moment they're not sure where they're going to put these in the game or how exactly they're going to work, but it is definitely something that will be coming to the game eventually. Storyline quests were spoken about. Nikita said that storyline quests, which were another feature rumoured to be coming to the game, and he said they will only be available in the final release of the game. No other information was really given about that. Then we got onto the biggie, which I think a lot of us really want to know what's going on with Streets of Tarkov. He said 90% of the team at the moment is working on Streets of Tarkov. He said due to the complexity of it, expansions to other maps which have been rumoured are not happening. So the Lighthouse one will, that's too far in the works now for them to not do, but he said now they just want to concentrate on Streets of Tarkov, getting this map out, getting it ready. He said it will be sort of done in stages, so we're going to get a first iteration at some point. Seems like he's hopeful that we'll get that at some point this year. That was the kind of vibe that I got from watching the podcast. Looks like we will get that at some point this year. I won't say when, he wouldn't be drawn on when either, but he said it's a very complex map. There's still a lot of work to be done to it, but they're pushing hard to get the first iteration out. Once that is released, they will be looking at adding more sort of areas to the map. He says monthly. I think that's maybe a little bit ambitious given the development cycle that I've seen over the last 3 to 4 years, but you never know. They are getting quicker at doing things, so, and I hope that they do manage to get that map out sort of in iterations quicker than what I think they will be able to. One of the streamers mentioned about what factions will be on the map, and Nikita wouldn't be drawn into what factions would be added to the map. He said there will be different types of scavs added on there, there will be different types of AI, there will be bosses on there of course, but he wouldn't be drawn into sort of what these the affiliations this so-called faction will have or anything like that. The streamer did say it was a GRU, but Nikita rubbished that and said that that's just a rumour and nothing has been set in stone. They spoke about a console version of the game. Nikita said he would like to eventually develop a console version of the game. Now I've heard this one before, but I think it's complete pie in the sky in my opinion. I don't think it will ever happen. Says that it'd be very complex to do. Obviously playing this game on a controller where you have a myriad of sort of keyboard functions, you wouldn't be able to sort of get all of those mapped onto a joypad, I don't think. But he says they do want to develop it at some point, so, but I personally don't think it will ever happen. Locking items in the stash. This is a feature that people have been asking for a while, so if you sort your stash, everything just moves all over the place. It's very annoying, but he says you will have the ability to pin items to certain areas of your stash so that they don't move it when you sort it, and you'll also be able to lock items as well so that they're not taken for crafts or you can't sell them by accident, you know, things like that. He said that is a feature that's been worked on and it will be released ASAP. Airdrops were spoken about. He says changes to the airdrops are in the works. There is the rumour that you'll be able to call in the airdrop yourself in the game by using some sort of in-game mechanic. He said they're looking at that. He said he wouldn't be again drawn on details, but changes to the airdrops are planned. DLSS was spoken about. He said that is ready to go. They're just trying to sort of work in when they're going to release it. He said that for those of us that are using 2K and 4K resolution or 2K and 4K screens, we will see an FPS boost by using DLSS, obviously if you have an RTX Nvidia card. But he also said that the competing AMD technology, I don't know the name, I'm not quite sure, but he says they are also looking at adding that into the game. He says that's in the works and they will release that as soon as possible, but DLSS will be first. Then they spoke about the final release, and I have to say that every time Nikita was sort of pushed to give a time or a sort of indication as to when something was released, you could see him rolling his eyes. He really didn't want to be drawn into giving any timelines for anything, which I can't blame him, because if he said that we was going to get something next month and we didn't get it next month, the community just goes up in arms about it and he gets sick of listening to people moan about stuff. He says that obviously they do have internal timelines that they try to meet, but he says because of the complex nature of the game, these are constantly shifting all the time, so he didn't want to give sort of a definitive answer as to when the game will finally release. But he says they're sort of in the final stretch. He says the game mechanics are more or less pinned down now, and sort of everything that's in the game now is more or less where they want it to be, but there will be tweaks and changes as we go along. But like he says, these timelines change, so he wouldn't be drawn on giving an answer for that. Some people believe that it'll be this year. I don't think it'll be this year at all. I think it won't be anytime soon. I think there's just too much going on in this game, too much to be added into this game, that I just don't think it will hit a final release anytime soon. He says that the auction house won't make it into the game, or probably won't make it into the game. He says it was something that they wanted to add, so you would be able to create a very unique weapon and put that up on the auction house. But the issue is that that very unique weapon that one person create, somebody else can create it if they have access to the flea market and the traders with those items. So it kind of becomes something that is sort of obsolete before it's even got off the ground. So he says that probably won't be in the game. And then he said about the overall development, it is being hampered at the moment by sickness in the company due to COVID. But he says whereas they had nearly 80% of the workforce off with COVID just after Christmas, he says that's down to sort of like 15% now. So they are moving forward with everything. So it was a good podcast to watch. I enjoyed listening to it. There was some good questions asked. Definitely Nikita didn't want to give any questions, any indication as to when things will be released or what sort of things will be coming in the future. He said there are things that they're working on that they won't tell us about, such as the airdrop. We had no idea the airdrops were going to be added into the game, but they came with 12.12. So he says that there are other things that they want to release and they just want to spring them on us. They don't really want to keep, tell us anything. They want to keep them secret. And that was pretty much it for that podcast. So yeah, it sounds like development is pushing forward. They want to move over to Unity 2020. I don't think us personally will know any difference in that. I think it's just going to be more for them. I think the change between Unity 2019 that we're on now and the change to Unity 2020 is it's just a formality. It's not a big leap like it was from the old version of Unity that they was using moving over to Unity 2019. So, but like I say, yeah, it was a good podcast to watch. He said that there is a dev cast that they're looking to do, so that will just be him and maybe a couple of the other dev team on it. I don't think there'll be any streamers on that one, but he says they was looking to do it next week, but due to issues it will be pushed back, so he's not really able to give us a fixed date for that. But again, when that one's done, I'll do a full breakdown of that as well. As I say, there is a link in the description for the full VOD. I'll also put a link to Nikita's Twitter. I highly recommend following him on Twitter if you are on there. He does tend to give stuff away before it goes onto the Battle State Twitter, and he does ask a lot of things and you get to know the guy a little bit more. He's definitely a decent fella. So with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for watching and listening. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe. Stay safe, and I will catch you in the next one. Take care.